meeting of Economic Growth and Development. Can I first of all get a motion to approve the minutes of our prior committee meeting? Supervisor Beatty and second by Supervisor Simpson. All those in favor?
Abstain.
Apparently we do not have the value of our video display. So Ed,
Sure.
you want to get us started and give us some background on what's happening? Yeah.
Sure. Good morning. We'll go back to non-PowerPoint presentation here just to review some of the activities the past 3 weeks that we've undertaken. EDC, we had an opportunity on August 10th to meet Supervisor Simpson to review the restoration that has been undertaken at the Union Church. EDC assisted with Senator Little in obtaining a $100,000 grant, along with great community support of donations of $50,000 for a $150,000 project for this building that's about 138 years old that they're going to be using as kind of a community room, historical society, and just a lot of local support for this project underway that'll be operated by the Town Historical Society. Matt, did you want to say anything else about that?
Well, we just really appreciate the support that EDC gave us in that process, and we look forward to great things happening in that part of our town.
Right. And again, I think the town strategy is to really promote the two hamlets, not only the area of Brant Lake, but Adirondack as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good start. Secondly, we participated in the South Street Market presentation this past week at the Crandall Library, which is such a great regional facility to host events and activities like that. We have outlined, just to show you, the activities on South Street, indicating which buildings are going to be demolished in the next 15 days, along with those that will be restored and developed. Also, I just listed out here, we undertook, I mentioned that our last meeting, or the meeting before, a survey of warehouse and logistics in the area. We're getting a lot of requests in the region to develop new warehousing space. There is a lack of warehouse space in Warren County and Washington County areas. The interest, though, is focused along the Northway exits at this particular time, and you can see, we know of exit 16 in Wilton, where you have Target and Ace that take up a tremendous amount of space and utilities there. You notice that particularly on a rainy day with tractor trailers all going up the Northway and turning off exit 16 up there. One of the things that we are looking at through our exit study is to determine the availability of spacing along the Northway to see if it would fit into any component there. With jobs associated with the warehousing, some of these warehousing are basically automated, and you may have 1 or 2 people there, and that's it. So we think that warehousing is important for a company, for regional distribution for their products in the area. Dollar General continues to look in this area because they are continuing to build at a rate of like 1 or 2 stores a month in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. So we want to see if we can be helpful, identify property in Warren County in the area of warehousing space. But that's obviously, you can see here where the warehousing is most prevalent. And the interesting thing is at the bottom, that is a very up-and-coming area way outside our region, is in Schoharie because of I-88 connecting Binghamton and that's really at the crossroads of the Thruway and also at the crossroads of the Northway as you get I-88 up into Rotterdam, Schenectady area. And that really is a growth area along with that massive warehousing that is going in over in East Greenbush that basically has been identified as probably an Amazon distribution system up there. It's like a 1 million square foot warehouse that's going up into that area. So we just showed some data in that particular area. We did have a survey that we undertook along with the workforce development in our region for Warren, Washington, and the Capital Region. John, do you want to say anything else relative to that issue on warehouse?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're obviously the big employment sectors are in Saratoga and Albany County, but it is as Ed says, an up-and-coming area. We've got to be mindful of it. I know the demand factor is driving more toward the north end, but pretty much shows you where we are with that particular sector.
Mike, did you have a question at one point? Did your hand go up?
I did, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry
I just wanted to go back to the South Street Market.
Yes.
And it appears as though what we're doing is taking away some private buildings and putting up a public sector region, so that has an impact on the tax rolls for the city. And I know the city has before mentioned that there's issues with sales tax and their
Well, what we're doing
raise
though
taxes.
is we're taking a public, where the current farmer's market is, and that will be converted, that's on phase 2 of DRI, that will be converted into a multi-use, mixed-use building on that particular segment. And the value of that building will be considerably more than the OTB, a vacant deteriorating building in Juicy Jar, in the Daily Double in there. So that it's basically, we swapped the location of the farmer's market where it currently is to go up the west on the block for about a block and a half, Mike. So plus the DRI is restoring currently 2 vacant buildings that is at a minimal on the tax rolls right now. They're city-owned properties. Those will be converted into public properties. Private properties as well. So it's kind of a swap in order to get the farmer's market in at that location.
Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the 36 Elm Street restoration, I mean, that building's been vacant as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
You know, they're definitely going to be converting that too, eh?
Oh yes, that's been approved by Schiphol for conversion. We've had a couple of prior efforts in having mixed-use buildings converted into that location, which did not pan out for a variety of reasons, but we're confident now. Schiphol has provided criteria along with the city in having those developed. 45 South and 36 Elm Street will be developed, and request for qualifications for developers will be going out late this fall.
Oh, awesome.
Develop those things.
And the second question, since we're moving the market, is there any way to save that pavilion?
Well, the pavilion will be saved. Right now, we've had requests from other communities. We are looking, the Recreation Commission is looking at to divide that pavilion up and put a portion of that down at Haviland's Cove, another portion up at Crandall Park, and perhaps at another location in the area as well. So
That's a beautiful pavilion.
It's a beautiful pavilion, and yes, there's no intent to destroy that. And if we cannot have find a appropriate location, we then will talk to other municipalities. Hudson Falls made the first call to the city a couple of years ago about that when this was being discussed there. We certainly would work with Hudson Falls or other communities at an appropriate price level. We're not looking to make a profit off of that to the pavilion.
Thank you, Ed.
So, moving on, the other interesting thing is, and again, some of these surveys are interesting just to see what manufacturing sites and the selection criteria, and this is a survey again that puts together kind of the top 10 site criteria for the area. Some of that may match into our area and others may not. Obviously is the infrastructure itself. In our area here, rail is used very minimally, unfortunately. So really our infrastructure from a logistics point of view is Interstate 87. The canal system basically is recreational, not a transport. It is utilized, the Hudson River, from New York City to Albany, and the Port of Albany has done a tremendous job in bringing up not only petroleum but also another group of products, as well as taking products down there. As you get into the Capital District, rail becomes more important. Companies such as Price Chopper utilizes the train in sending products from this area in upstate New York out, and on the way back they're bringing apples and other fruits and other products back on the train as well. So the train area, and I know that's under discussion by the board here as to what you're doing with your rail line in this particular area here. One of the challenges in this area is the number of interfaces that a rail operator has to have with other operators in rail into this area to get down to the Port of Albany for freight. And that has been a major stumbling block, is the tariff, if you will, and there is no set time frame that the companies you're trying to negotiate with have to respond back to you. It really is an issue that the federal government needs to get more involved with, because right now in New York State it's just a patchwork of small, short line rails. Port of Albany has their own set of rules. D&H and the Canadian Pacific have their set of rules. So when Barton Mines, as an example, attempted to move their tailings from the North Country down to like the Port of Albany and other products that we looked at, we were looking at some characteristics dealing with logging operations. It just they could get into a truck quicker and move down there. The problem, the issue environmentally is, of course, one trailer of a car on the train replaces 5 trucks on the road taking that same amount of supplies down from the area. So I think that's why the proponents that are saying that you should keep the rail would make that argument. The question then comes is whether or not there's sufficient market up in our area to really move freight down there versus the concept of taking the rail out and having recreational use. That is also a business mechanism for tourism to come into the area as well. So it's a kind of a balancing act in there. But again, it looks at the logistic infrastructure, your population, your availability, what the transportation cost is, and down here, number 4 is available buildings or certified sites for kind of shovel-ready sites in order to get things done. And typically, utilities at the infrastructure, generally some of these may have to have 3-phase power on some of these, and then the supply chain. That is important into the area. So it's just a thumbnail sketch of some of the characteristics from a manufacturing survey that is undertaken in the area. One of the other outgrowths of the selling of portion of AngioDynamics business to Medline is the expansion in Queensbury that will get underway, and that is an upgrade to expand their distribution warehousing, but also to put a manufacturing component in Queensbury, and this will be done at their site in Queensbury, adjacent to the airport in that area. And I know that they will be working with Supervisor Strahl and Queensbury Planning Board on their project out there. The other big item which has not garnered a lot of news is the collaboration, partnership, and acquisition by Finch of French paper company in Niles, Michigan. This is right now we know that Finch paper is uncoated white paper, like Mr. Beatty has on his white shirt, and French paper, similar to Finch. It's a family-owned operation since the 1800s. Is like Mike Wild's shirt. It is uncoated color, and so by combining this as a marketing tool, this will be a major plus for Finch paper. There will be separate operations will continue between French paper and Finch, but Finch has acquired this through its Finch Paper Holding Company, not Atlas. So I think this is a major plus for Finch. There's no change in employment factors here in Glens Falls. I think it strengthens the market and strengthens the bottom line of Finch paper, going forward in response to doing this. So this is about Niles, Michigan, is about 30 miles outside of South Bend, Indiana.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Did you say Finch acquired them, or
That is
did
correct.
they merge?
No, they acquired.
Okay.
It's a subsidiary holding of Finch paper.
Oh, Finch. Okay.
Basically, they see the collaboration and partnership in marketing, and I think this is a significant step forward for Finch paper in our area out there. So again, you may have seen up on the county's airport site the result of the study that was done by Don DeGraw and your consulting company in terms of marketing the airport, developable lands in that particular area, as well as on our website. We've also sent that information down to ESD for promotion, so that they have an idea of what we are doing in the area of airport development, not only aviation related, but also non-aviation related, that we would like. Also, just a highlight on the next page, as we discussed this morning, the back lots on the Queensbury, and for orientation purposes, at the front of this is the Queensbury Avenue, and you see the entranceway in. All of these black designated marks, it's like my granddaughter's fingerprinting here. That is the wetlands that are on the property at this time. Those have been delineated. We are having Chasen going out, and we'll confer with DEC again as to the extent of these wetlands at this particular time. Principally, they extend more on the back lots than forth. If you go to the next page, you will see the first 4 lots off of Queensbury Avenue are properties owned by EDC. Approximately $10,000 a year in taxes are paid on that by EDC to the town, county, and school. And then the next page shows the 4 lots, 5, 6, 8, and 9, that are currently under option by the county to EDC. And then you can see between 6 and 9, the entranceway number lot 7 to the Readiness Center. And there again, at the last page here, it shows the entire 9 lots division. This was an old former quarry site that was taken by the county years ago for tax sale. And then just lastly, I'd like to acknowledge Doug Huntley's retirement. Doug spent many years at Queensbury, as well as at Hadley Luzerne, and very instrumental in developing the international baccalaureate degree, bachelor's degree internationally. One of the few schools in upstate New York that has this as an attraction for economic development for international companies coming in. That becomes a key for that, but also for Queensbury's outreach to EDC, to BOCES, in terms of developing curriculum for those individuals that want to pursue occupation in trade and so forth, rather than ongoing into college to go into other avenues. They have very innovative in this area, and one of the criterias that we have asked them to consider, the board, when they are looking for a new superintendent, is to include the whole issue of curriculum for purposes of employment in our area. Right now, we have a shortage in our marine operations in our area. This is a big tourist boating area. They are in dire need of mechanics to do repairs, undertake repairs in this area. We have worked with Marine group of people, association, and BOCES is putting together a program in this particular area. Another major area is welding. So those are the kind of things that a school district can do that's a little bit outside the box, but really is important for our region, is to provide these opportunities at Queensbury and other schools in our area for advancement in the trades area.
Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment that Dr. Huntley has been a huge asset to this area. And I thought since he's retiring, he may get off the task force, but he said no, he feels that the 2030 task force, which is trying to get people to move back in and through what all that encompasses, he definitely wants to stay on that and be a strong participant in that. So I find that very encouraging, and I'm glad that he's not going to run away.
He plans on staying in the area.
He's going to be on the task force, and that's important to me. So,
Thank you, Doug.
That is the conclusion of the report.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Ed. Very informative. Supervisor Bramer.
Are we going to discuss the 4 parcels in Queensbury Business Park that EDC would like to consider acquiring?
Yes.
Can we have an update on where that is and what the plan is going forward, please?
You certainly can, yes.
Number 2 on the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Would Brian want to maybe jump into that, or...
Look, I gave you guys a perfect segue.
we appreciate all the help you can provide.
Okay, just a brief history on this, for those that might not be familiar with it. This goes back to 2000. It is all of these parcels that are on this handout that Ed had previously mentioned. The EDC has 4 of these left that they have an option on. They're the quote-unquote back parcels. The initial agreement, as I said, was from 2000. It was revised, and the revisions were unanimously adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2001. And the terms, other than the expiration of the option, are the same as what is currently in the option. They were all contained in a December 2004 executed contract. That contract has been extended several times. There was a 4-year extension to November of 2015, which passed unanimously, and then another extension to November 15th of 2019, which was adopted unanimously by the board. Just to briefly on the terms, the purchase price is $1,600 per acre. I believe there's 20 to 25 acres that are remaining that have not yet been purchased. At the time of purchase, the EDC would take over the responsibility to pay the local and town taxes. Up until now, the county has been paying those taxes to the town of Queensbury and the school. Also, we haven't gotten county tax revenue from these parcels since probably the late 80s. As Ed mentioned, we initially acquired this through a tax foreclosure. It was an old stone quarry. The IDA had informally expressed an interest, at least some of the members of the IDA board had expressed an interest in looking at this. The IDA discussed it at a recent meeting and was not comfortable at this point in time taking an official position until the county and the EDC explored whether or not we were going to execute the purchase option, or whether to extend it, or whatever we're going to do with it. So that is why we're here today. There's been some discussion about whether we can get these parcels exempt from taxes so that the county doesn't have to pay. We cannot. Pursuant to state law, the use of the property does not fall under an exemption. The Queensbury would have to, the Queensbury assessor would have to declare them exempt, and that wouldn't happen. Again, state law. Mike Swan is here if you have any questions about that piece. And the logic behind giving the EDC the option in the first place was to make it more attractive to a private buyer rather than going through the process of having a sale approved by the Board of Supervisors. The EDC, one other thing that you should know about the 4 parcels that are remaining is that there's a high water table. You saw on the map where the wetlands are in relation to these parcels, and it's also very rocky. Given those limitations, those potential limitations, I should say, to development, the EDC is asking us to extend the option for another 18 months to allow them to, at their own expense, have a study done as to the feasibility of developing these parcels. And at the point in time at which the EDC might decide to follow through and acquire these parcels and market them, the EDC has offered to split the proceeds in some fashion with the county in the event that these parcels are sold. Not just these parcels, I should add, but the parcels that were part of the initial agreement that the EDC has already acquired. So we're talking all of this on the map, not just the 4 that are still out there. We do not have a percentage on what that match would be. That's something that this committee, I think, would be appropriate to discuss what we would like to negotiate with the EDC, and I leave it to the pleasure of the committee as to whether you want to do that in executive session or whether you want to do it in open session with the EDC here.
Does anyone on the board have any? I'm happy with the open discussion. Go ahead, Claudia.
I'm happy to hear that they are considering splitting the ultimate revenue with the county for all the parcels. That's, I think, a positive development for us, and I certainly understand their desire to want to study a little bit further the site characteristics, given that it was a former quarry. It's got to be very rocky, and as you mentioned, the wetlands on the site could make it difficult for development, so they have to know what they're getting into.
Supervisor Stroud.
Well, another thing, and Ed and I have talked about this, is that the original layout of the subdivision probably didn't take into factors that we have since the subdivision have learned. Factors about the high water table, depth of bedrock, wetlands, and so forth. Now that we know what we know now, we need to probably take a look at that subdivision. How is it laid out? Some of the lots may not be very developable, and combining them and identifying developable land might be the option, the best way to go to make them more marketable. So if you did a shovel-ready test, and that's what Ed is suggesting, that we hire somebody like Chazen to further investigate this matter, it might behoove us to all sit down at the table, look at a subdivision that makes more sense in terms of developability and marketability, and go from there, because the bottom line is, in our own interest, is that we market these properties out, we attract an industry that locates there and provides good jobs and starts paying taxes. So, to get into an argument about who owes what, when, and where, I think is not productive. More productive, I think, would be what I just suggested.
Supervisor Bramer.
I hear what Supervisor Shaw is saying, but if we're going to come up with a new plan for going forward, shouldn't we discuss what we think is going to be the revenue split eventually?
I think
Or are we
that's...
just going to kick the can down the road and
No,
do that later?
I think we are going to talk about that, and that's what about the revenue split.
Yeah.
That's
Because that's the biggest change in the terms,
That's-
other than giving them another 18 months to do the study. I mean, are we looking at 50/50? What has there... I don't know,
First of
I don't
all,
even know where to begin.
Let me just say this, that we are, we have never opposed public hearing going forward on this, and that will remain. Even if all the terms remain the same, we have no objection to a public hearing. Secondly, most importantly, the selling price of these lots, based on the wetland and bedrock, will be not what you may have in your mind of being $50,000, $60,000 an acre. This is going to be considerably less than that. And also, we are estimating that we will be spending between $30,000 and $40,000 with Chazen or another CT Mail or another company to go in there and undertake specific locations with the bedrock, along with other conditions, taking a look at the redesignation of these lot lines and so forth, as you saw in that one picture with the wetlands, in order to come up with a marketable study on that. So we have no objections in sharing on all of those other 8 lots, the other 4 lots, because again, there are some constraints, as you can see, on those other 4 lots as well. So we are here for discussion purposes on a percentage of the net proceeds.
Supervisor Bramer.
But, Ed, that's great. I'm super glad to hear about the public hearing. I think it's been a while, so the public deserves another shot at saying whatever they want to say. But as Supervisor Strauss said, with the lots, I mean, if we're going to reconfigure them, maybe it won't be 1, 2, 3, as these are set out.
That's
It could
right.
be completely different.
Right.
And I'd be open to saying, okay, whatever the split is, you'd get to recoup your cost of the study, and then we split.
We're not looking...
Whatever I don't know.
That's fine, but we're not, we understand, that's our commitment to, this is really a partnership between the county and EDC. And we are undertaking these costs and not putting that into our calculation for the net proceeds.
Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you. So, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, so if we recap here. So, you do a study at your cost, the EDC. We need to negotiate the proceeds if you do exercise your option, which the option you're looking for is 18 months.
18 months, yes.
At that time, you will say yay or nay on whether you want to purchase the lots, correct?
Correct, yes.
And hopefully, we'll have nailed down either today or soon
Yeah.
the proceeds, how we're going to split
Absolutely.
the proceeds. Okay, is that
That's a very
That's
good,
it.
that's a very good
Okay.
recap.
All right, so all we have now left today is, A, do we want to go forward with the option,
Yes.
which I do.
Yeah.
I want to go forward with the 18-month option. B, do we negotiate the dollar amount from the proceeds today, or the percentage, actually?
Yeah.
And I would be in favor of 50-50 split. I think you'd be favorable to that. It may not be the big money we all thought it was going to be, but whatever it is, whatever it is, and I think a fair split of 50-50 with the county getting 50 makes sense to me.
Jennifer.
I've heard both proceeds and net proceeds. You as a board, both EDC and I think the board, we need to determine, is it proceeds or net proceeds? Because there's a huge difference.
I was, in terms of proceeds being a percentage of the gross, I was going to throw out 20% for the county in recognition of the fact that they're paying for the study. But if we want to talk net proceeds, then, the danger being if they don't sell for enough money to recoup that investment or to recoup a major part of that investment, then the county could walk away with nothing.
Supervisor Bramer.
Yes, I understand that they're going to have costs, but we've been sitting on these for a long time and paying taxes on them as a proprietary landowner, so that factors into my mind with respect to whether or not we're going to take 50% of growth or only 20%. I mean, what have their costs been during this whole time, other than the study they're talking about?
We have $1.3 million in infrastructure. So from an accounting standpoint, that would have to be considered as part of the cost of the property that EDC has
I think
incurred.
we come up with a
Okay, that puts it in perspective.
They have been paying taxes on the parcels that they did acquire out of the initial option.
You know, I think that Matt Fuller, the chair of EDC, has, joined us, and Matt, with his real estate background, may have a suggestion on starting of a formula that might...
Well, welcome, Matt. Did you look like you might want to say something or not?
If I could, yeah.
Please.
One thought I had was, why don't we just do a pro rata? Take the total that the county has paid in taxes and things over the years, take the total that the EDC has invested over the years, and then just do the percentage. So take the EDC's amount over the total, the county's amount over the total, because that's going to change. We're going to put more money into it and things. And that just strikes me as a kind of an equitable, because I don't think we expect to necessarily make money. That's not the goal. The goal is to get good, viable businesses in there. But that just seems if I was in a real estate closing and we were looking to split something that we had cost into, that's usually the first thing we do is do an equitable proration like that. That's just a thought.
Thank you, Matt. Just go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I look at this a slightly different way. I believe we provide significant funding to the EDC for their operations, so as the esteemed supervisor across the table from me has stated, that it seems like we're negotiating against ourselves. Let's just, let's get this sold. Let's put it on the tax rolls. Let's get some jobs. If we don't get any revenue from a county perspective, I think that's not such a bad thing. If we get money for Queensbury, money for the county in terms of property taxes, and we get some jobs out of it.
Excellent observation. The big picture, let me just a quick commentary as a chairman. The big picture is, as Supervisor Strauss indicated, finding an employer, providing usable, stable, good-paying jobs. That's 95% of the picture. This is all detail stuff, and if I were, at the top of my head, if I were the EDC, I think net proceeds. If I were the EDC, that would be my option. I think they would be better off. So, but just an observation. But go ahead.
Just to follow on, why don't we just give them the clear rights to negotiate a sale for this property for 5 years, and we come back in 5 years and we say, let's find somebody else who can get it sold.
Claudia.
Okay, we are two separate bodies, though. They have a separate board, they have a separate budget. I have no objection to Mr. Fuller's proposal about a pro rata share based on our two entities' expenditures, which probably the county's is going to be much smaller than theirs, which is fine. So we'll get a smaller piece of the revenue pie at the end, which is fine, because we are supposed to be in a partnership. But I don't like your idea of just letting them sit on it for 5 years. Let's have some
2 years?
18 months. They've asked for 18 months. Let's give it to them.
Attorney Fuller.
Yeah, if I could again, it's a, when I look at it from the EDC's perspective, I think even the county too, the sale of the lots topic is a fine line, right? Because I think, you look at some of the industrial park lots just up the road, I think what we don't want to see is a speculator come along, or if we were just trying to sell lots, I don't think any of us wants to see a speculator come along and sit on lots, right? We want them to turn over. So, we think about it every year too when we spend the money on the taxes. On the one hand, do you want to just get them sold, but we're not paying taxes on them? Or do you keep paying the taxes with the idea being we have an end goal here, which is not to just sell lots, but to actually make them productive? That's the tension, right? Is looking at the amount of money that even the county, because you're right, you fund part of our operation too, no question about it. Do you look at the amount that we're paying every year to fund those taxes and things versus just selling them and getting back on the roll, but not having a productive goal. So that's our goal here is to, there's a lot of land in the region. There's other lots that are for sale. We're competing with that, even within our own county, right? We're competing with other economic development lots. So it's, I think the idea of getting the info from Chazen, because I've been over there. If you haven't been over there and walked it, you gotta. And the other thing with wetlands is, for lack of a better term, they're fluid. They grow, they shrink, and they ebb and flow over decades. So most likely they've grown. certainly the regulatory interpretation of what is a wetland has changed. I think we got to ferret that out, come out with a good idea of what these lots should look like, get a good building envelope on them, because I've done site selection. That's the first thing they look at. You know, what's the building envelope going to look like? What's my cost of restoration if I have to do it? We're going to get rid of all that. Here's your building envelope. If the lot lines need to change, we can get to the planning board, get a modification in. I doubt they'll have a problem there. And really come back to this pro rata idea of saying, okay, at the end of the day, we're X dollars into it globally. You're right. We are getting back some of that pro rata, which you guys have helped fund, but that money also goes right back into further economic development. So I think we're just, rolling that a bit. But yeah, I mean, time marches on. We get it too. We'd love to see them sold, but we want to see them sold to somebody that's going to use them, not speculating.
Do you have any more perspective, Ryan?
Just procedurally, the current agreement expires November 15th. It happens to be the day of the board meeting, I think. Amanda can confirm that. But if we want to do the 18-month extension prior to the current extension expiring, we could come back to this committee with more details on a revenue split. We could bring it to the next meeting a month from now. We could get it on for the October board meeting and schedule the public hearing at the October meeting for the November meeting.
Michael, yeah.
Can I set a motion to extend the 18-month option?
Okay,
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to extend...
With the public hearing.
With the public hearing. We are not addressing in the motion the percentage here?
Yeah.
If we're going to have a public hearing, we ought to, that's a change in the terms, so we're going to have a public hearing on that percentage.
We'll put it in writing.
Okay.
We'll redline the agreement and send it. How's that?
That sounds good. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I saw Travis's hand go up. Did you, yeah. Sure, of course, yeah.
First of all, I'm glad to hear that we're talking about this. It's been a very long time, and I think that, and when you talk about something, you do come up with better ideas. So I really like what I see in this agreement that's been hammered out between Ed and Ryan. I kind of take it, and I hope that you do go ahead and pursue this. That land has been sitting there for a very long time. Mike is right that, it should be developed. But I think the best thing about this is yay or nay. I mean, at the end of this, hopefully, either the EDC will take it and hopefully develop it, as they've been trying to do for some years, or they'll say, you know what, it just doesn't seem like it's economically suitable for us, and maybe the county could then look at it. We mentioned the rocks and the wetlands that are there, obviously, but there's also a transmission line that runs right through that property, which makes it a very attractive for a solar farm. There have been people talking to the airport right now about putting a solar farm on the airport property just across the street. And you could envision that these lands could be used for that. It would be actually more palatable for the company to do that. They need access to a solid grid, and there is a substation right in that area. So I believe that the best thing is yay or nay. They've had this land for a very long time, and I'd like to see something happen with there, preferably jobs. Would be better than solar, for sure, but let's do something with the property. And I'm glad that we're going to have an opportunity to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more discussion as far as the board is concerned? We're running a little bit late. Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are we agreeing on them doing a study on the ground, too, to see what's underneath and... What do you call that, Ed?
Well, we're doing a site analysis.
All right, you're still doing that. Do you need approval for that, or? All right, okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. We're running a tad late here. This is the first time this committee has gone over time. I'm deeply embarrassed, but it's all okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Stroud. All those in favor?
Aye.
The LDC.
Jim, what is good value to operate